Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjala-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we are continuing reading from Bhagavad-gītā as this, from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, founder-ācārya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we are continuing chapter 4, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge, and it speaks that the spiritual knowledge of the soul, the God, and the relationship is both purifying and liberating. And we are now doing section about transcendental knowledge about Krishna. Last time we were speaking about the reasons of Krishna's appearance. So basically there were three main reasons. One was to deliver or protect the sadhus or devotees, then to annihilate the miscreants who are causing difficulties to those sadhus or devotees, and also to reestablish the religion, because we heard also before that in the mean of time there may be some deviations from religious practices, so Krishna has to come and put it back on track so the living entities can peacefully continue executing their spiritual or other duties. And also we spoke what is meant by sadhu. So sadhu means basically person who is Krishna conscious, and compared to, or opposite to that was the miscreant or dushkrita. So he's the person who is not Krishna conscious. Then we were speaking about various avatars of the Lord. Basically, those avatars are described in the scripture, and in this way we also can recognize whether one is a bona fide avatar or not. So somebody who is claiming that he is a avatar of God, we can see if it is described in the scripture, because it will be announced before he appears. And for present age, we have avatar of Lord Chaitanya, who is whose mission is to spread the chanting of the holy names of God. So we will continue with Shlokas 9 to 10, and will be about the benefit of understanding Krishna's birth and activities. So nine. It's also a shloka which is studied for memorization in the Bhakti Shastri degree, also very important one. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha tyaktva punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Janma, birth, karma, work, cha, also me, of mine. Divyam, transcendental, evam, this, like this. Yaha, anyone who veti, knows tatvataha, in reality, tyaktva, leaving aside. Deham, this body, punaha, again, janma, birth. Na, never eti, does attain mam, unto me. Eti, does attain saha, he, Arjuna, or Arjuna. Translation: one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Purport: the Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahma Jyotir of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita 5.33, it is stated that the Lord has many forms and incarnation. Advaitam achyutam anadi mananta rupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, there are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. As stated in the Vedas, Purusha Bodhini Upanishad, Ekudevo nitya lidanurakto bhaktavyapi hridyantaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many transcendental forms in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita personally by the Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste time in philosophical speculations, attains the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can without a doubt attain liberation. The Vedic version Tattvam Asi is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Kṛṣṇa to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, "You are the same Supreme Brahman, the Personality of Godhead," is certainly liberated instantly, and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, and this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tameva viditvati mrityumeti nanyak panta vidyate yanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no other way to achieve this perfection. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation, simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad-gīta according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. So here Krishna is speaking about the benefit of understanding the transcendental nature of his appearance and activities. So this means that when that person or devotee will be leaving the body, so he will never return back to the material world. He will remain in the spiritual world. So compared to this, some other people like impersonalists or yogis, they attain big austerities to get liberation, but when they get to Brahma Jyoti, they think they will stay there for eternity, but it is not like that, because spirit soul cannot be inactive. There the state is kind of eternality they can feel, but souls need some activity. So after some time they will be desiring this activity, and since the only memory they have is from the material world, so by this desire to do some activity, they will return back to the material world. So they cannot stay there eternally, basically, in the Brahma Jyoti. Compared to these devotees, because they already meditate about the pastimes of the Lord, so in this way they are at the time of death, if they are practicing properly, so they will also remember the Lord at that time. So then their destination is the spiritual world, or the place where Lord will enact his pastimes. And he's mentioning here also that Lord has many forms, although he's one and the same personality of Godhead, so he's manifesting just in different ways. Also, according to the taste of his devotees, he's manifesting himself to reciprocate with them in various ways. And this is very difficult to understand by someone who is materialistic, or as is mentioned here, mundane scholars or empiric philosophers. They cannot conceive these things, how Lord is manifesting in his eternal forms. So, so basically we see that there is no other way how to get to the spiritual world, or how to get liberation, only by devotional service to the Lord. This is the only way, only permanent way, because as we said, this Brahmajyoti liberation is very long but very temporary. Okay. For then, Vitaraga Bhayakrodha Manmayamam Upashritaha Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Putamadbhavam Agataha. Vita, freed from raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, krodhaha, and anger, matmayaha, fully in me. Mam, in me, upashritaha, being fully situated, bhavaha, many, jnana, of knowledge, tapasa, by the penance, putaha, being purified, madbhavam, transcendental love for me, agataha, attained. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Purport, as described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life, they are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal, and because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again, and so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubble of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embraced by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause, that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their affective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life, fear of a spiritual personal identity, and a conception of void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of the material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of the devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. Okay, so here are described basically three categories of people who are, for them it's difficult to understand the Lord as a person. So one of them is the people who are too much materially absorbed or attached. So because they understand that material body is perishable, is full of ignorance, and is also miserable, not blissful. So that's why they think that if the Lord has such body, or even if they would have such body in the spiritual world, so the same thing will happen also. So that's why they are basically frustrated out of this material world and doesn't want to be persons at all again. So basically this is transforming also in a fear, and whether they accept the is like kind of gradation to this second category, that then they are fearful also to become persons and prefer impersonal liberation, just to merge and don't care anymore about the any activities or personal things because of this understanding. And then there is third category of people who tried many things and they're very much confused because these theories or various spiritual paths, so-called spiritual paths, are full of contradictions, and there is a lot of confusion for them, and a lot of speculation is happening. So they, after some time, they become disgusted or angry because they cannot conceive the ultimate truth. So this is basically kind of Buddhism, because they want to become void, they want to annihilate themselves because of this. And also this category of people is taking into intoxication just to forget of these things. So the ultimately the solution for all these categories of people is to take complete shelter of the Lord. Maybe difficult for them to explain, but there is basically no other way for them. Ultimately, they have to give up these fears and attachments and frustrations. And it's very important that they take also guidance by the from the bona fide spiritual master and follow the regulative principles of devotional life. So in this way, they can get out of these things. And I think it's also, if they encounter the Kṛṣṇa consciousness, I think it will be something which even for those categories will make sense. Because was also my case, that once I understood or came upon the Srila Prabhupada books, after so many theories I heard, I realized that this is only something what I could experience also myself, and everything made sense from encountering this. Okay. Comment: only through unalloyed love for God one can understand Krishna. Yes, yes. If there is no love, then Krishna is not revealing himself also. Yes, exactly. So now we will see how to get to this love, because he is speaking here, Prabhupada is speaking about the stage of Bhava, but before Bhava there are other stages also. So according to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.4, 15 to 16, the signs of devotional service, sorry, Ado Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Sango Tapajana Kriya Tato Narta Nivritik Sya Tato Nishta Ruchistataha. Tata saktis tato bhavas tatah prema budanchati sadhakanam ayam premna pradurbhave bhavet kramaha. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So by the slow process of devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. So here, these stages are described. First one is Shraddha, or preliminary faith. So one has some faith in some process, so he tries to associate with sadhu. This stage is sadhu sangha. So he is hearing from the sadhus and is getting inspired. And after sufficient hearing, then he tries to do something about it, to practice it also, not only just hearing. So then he takes some guidance from those sadhus. And it is mentioned here under the guidance of the spiritual master. So then he takes initiation, and this stage is called bhajana kriya. So he's executing these rules and regulations of devotional service. And while executing these rules and regulations, some anarthas, it's called anarthas, is basically unwanted things which are coming forward from our subconsciousness and which are trying to stop our progress, because there are some attachments we had for a long time, since time immemorial. So now when we are starting to practice, so this clearing process is happening, and that's why these anarthas or unwanted things are coming up. So we have to deal with them. So this is anartha nivritti stage. And when we are done with these anarthas to some extent, I think it's around 70% maybe. So then we are becoming stable, and this stage is called nishta. So till nishta, basically it's more difficult to progress because of these anarthas which we have to deal with. But from nishta, it is going much more quickly. So then the stage ruchi is there, which is the taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. And then once we are hearing, so after some time we become attached to this hearing. So there is a asakti stage. In this asakti stage, basically mind, till this stage, mind is still sometimes going here and there, and we have to bring it back like consciously, but in the asakti stage, mind is automatically coming back, even because this stage or attachment is so high already. Then the stage of bhava is there, and is preliminary stage of transcendental law. So one is feeling some transcendental emotions, some spiritual feelings, but is still not full love of God. Full of love of God is called prema. So this is the highest perfectional stage. So we see what is the process, how to get to the love of God. There is much more description in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Srila Prabhupada made a summary of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in in his book Nectar of Devotion, so there we can go into more details about all these stages. Also in the book called Madhurya Kadambini from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, these stages are described even in more detail, especially Anartha Nivritti and on sorry, also other stages. So so here we see by the guidance of the spiritual master how we can gradually progress and get rid of these frustrations and fears and like these attachments. Important thing also, these stages, for example, Shraddha, doesn't mean that once we are in Shraddha and then we jump to Sadhu Sangha, Shraddha is gone. No, all these stages will increase. Shraddha or faith will increase with the next stage. Sadhu Sangha will also, like, we will have more association of devotees with the next stage. Then we are practicing more, and like this it is going up and up. So then also taste is increasing and attachment is increasing and spiritual emotions are increasing like this. So it's going up and up. Basically Shraddha is, Prema is the mature faith also. Means there is full faith, so full Shraddha. So it's not like we are coming from one to other, but all of them are gradually increasing this stages or qualities. Okay. So that's it for today. A little shorter, but very important things here. Okay, are there any questions or comments? Okay. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad-gītā ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivedanta ki jai.